Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, good afternoon. Thank you for coming on today.
Good afternoon.
Well, stocks on Wall Street retreated a bit overnight. They started out higher with good results from Goldman Sachs. A report from Apple sent the market lower, though, saying it was planning to slow down hiring and spending next year. The three main indices down between about 0.7 and 0.8%. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, if you look at the U.S. market, it lost about a percentage point or so. Dow was down by about 200 points. S&P and Nasdaq closed down roughly about 1%. At the beginning of the market, it went up as high as 1% plus, but it ended with a lower at minus 1%. The main reason for that is because continued high inflation and continued aggressive monetary policy might be affecting the U.S. economy to go through a recession. Quite a bit of uncertainty about recession potential. Despite, if you look at the earnings number, it came out quite nicely. Particularly, the Apple have announced that they will be slowing hiring and spending growth in some divisions for next year because they're expecting a possible economic slowdown next year. So if you look at the investors, they're pretty much scaling back of the overall investment behind the interest rate hike that you're seeing. Now, if you look at the Fed, they are saying that they probably are focusing on 75 basis point hike rather than 100 basis point hike. A lot of people were concerned that they might be doing 100 basis point hike due to high inflation number that we saw as high as 9.1% for the previous month. So continuously, the macroeconomic pictures are overshadowing the earnings number that is coming in positively. Goldman Sachs and Bank of America have shown quite a bit of results positive. I guess people are wondering about the potential or the guidance of the earnings going into the future, as people might be worried about the economic recession that might be coming through early next year.
Right, and Korean stocks down today, too, for the most part, after that reversal in the U.S. A lot of tech names were lower, like LG Innotech down about 5%. Food maker Ottogi, though, was up 4% or so. The depreciation of the currency easing off a bit. Tell us about the domestic market.
Yes, Korean market closed pretty much flat. Kospi was down by 0.18%. Kosdaq is actually up by 0.72%. If you look at the foreign investors movement, pretty much they didn't do much as far as the foreign investors are concerned. Not much of buying or selling on both of the Kospi and Kosdaq market. But as far as the futures market is concerned, they have sold about 335 billion won worth of futures. If you look at the retail investors and institutional investors, pretty much not much of net buying or selling. Continuously, you are seeing quite a bit of a low volume trading. I think that people are quite uncertain about what might be happening to the currency and the potential for the currency swap. If you look at the Korean won, it did go up to as high as 1320 in the previous few days. Today, it has appreciated slightly to 1311 territories. But nevertheless, it is one of the highest level that we've seen in a very, very long time. I think that people are uncertain about the rate hike speed and also the currency swap, how well it will be established. If that happens, then the Korean won will be in good position to appreciate. But for the time being, the super dollar or the king dollar sentiment that we're seeing right now, the dollar index hitting as high as 108 plus. Right now it's around 107, but continuously quite uncertain about the speed of the interest rate hike and that having effect on the interest rate, on the currency, the dollars. All in all, as long as the dollar continues to appreciate and Korean won continues to depreciate, Korean market will not be in a position to rise further. So we need to watch carefully what might happen to the currency. But hopefully there might be some possibility that the Korean won stabilizes in the future as the U.S. rate hike speed might be slowing down after the July 27th. But for the time being, the volatility is expected.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden's been in Saudi Arabia, and it looks like he was not able to get the Saudis to agree to increase oil output. They're saying they don't have the capacity, and anyway, OPEC Plus doesn't seem to have any interest in raising output. Prices have climbed back up a bit. What's going on with oil, and what's your outlook?
Yes, clearly the oil prices have risen quite sharply recent a few days. Brent oil is up to $106 per barrel. Usually when that price goes up as high as 104 plus, people might be concerned about the economic recession. In terms of the supply and demand side, as you know, Russia is cutting gas to Europe, and therefore that caused the prices to go up. People were hoping that Saudi Arabia will be kicking in terms of the production and supply, but the level of the increase that we're expecting is not as much as people hoped for. That is causing the oil price to further rise. I think that in terms of demand side, though, there could be some slowdown because of the economic slowdown that people are expecting going into the second half of this year, maybe particularly next year. Overall demand and supply picture for oil seems to be that the production level is continuing to rise. It's the political reasons that is causing the supply bottleneck, but overall supply side of it is that it is increasing quite rapidly. The overall production capacity of U.S. has risen to quite significantly high compared to the previous peaks. All in all, we think that the oil price is not probably in a position to further rise, but rather stabilize in the future as long as supply pictures continues to come in, and hopefully that the Saudi Arabia increasing the supply might be gradually happening. Of course, it might not happen immediately, but on a gradual scale, we think that the overall production from the global scale might be rising, and therefore oil price might be stabilizing.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it with your help, Mr. Yu. Thank you as always for coming on the program. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.